on this side. Any further discussion on the bill? All right, well, let's move to the amendatory process. So for what purpose does the gentle lady seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, could the gentlelady please specify the amendment?
Yes, it's 431201.
Amendment to H.R. 4312, offered by Mr. Han. Page 2, strike line 12, and all that follows through line 17.
Without
Chairman-
objection,
Mr. Chairman, I
the
reserve a
reading of
point
the
of
amendment
order.
is dispensed with.
I reserve a point of
Oh,
order.
you're, okay, very good. Gentleman reserves a point of order. Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is simple. It strikes 3 provisions from this legislation that, when considered together in their current form, place significant restrictions on college athletes' ability to advocate for themselves. First, this amendment strikes the sweeping antitrust exemption that would allow the NCAA and conferences to adopt and enforce rules against athletes, no matter how harmful, no matter how absurd, without fear of being challenged in court. Now, all of the progress that we've seen in college sports in recent years on NIL, revenue sharing, and investments in women's championships, it didn't happen because the NCAA had a change of heart. It didn't happen because conferences stepped up or college presidents suddenly decided to do the right thing. It happened because athletes sued, resulting in rulings, settlements, and public pressure that forced the NCAA to change. And it's worth remembering just how hard the NCAA fought to stop them. In the Johnson v. NCAA case just last year, attorneys for the NCAA actually cited the 13th Amendment's slavery exception, as they had multiple times before to argue that college athletes are more like prison labor than employees. That was in 2024. That's who we want to hand a permanent antitrust liability exemption to? No guardrails, no sunset. Just total trust in the very institution that has fought tooth and nail to deny athletes their rights at every turn? Now, don't get me wrong, the NCAA has done some good things, particularly since President Baker took the helm. But where's the guarantee that that continues after he leaves? What if the next NCAA president goes back to business as usual? Second, this amendment strikes the provision that would codify into law for the first time that college athletes can never be considered employees. To be clear, right now, not a single college athlete is an employee, not of their school or their conference or the NCAA. And there is no pending case before the National Labor Relations Board seeking to change that. This provision is not a response to an urgent problem. If, and only if, athletes someday seek employee status, and if a court or board agrees, it will be because of how they're treated, the hours, the restrictions, the control over their lives. But this provision says it doesn't matter how they're treated. It slams the door shut forever, including on the right to collectively bargain, even if they want to do so without asking for compensation. And finally, this amendment strikes the provision that preempts all state NIL laws and blocks states from doing more to protect college athletes. The broad preemption language sets a low ceiling for athletes' rights and what states can do to protect them. One that states can't go above, even if they're trying to, for example, expand the health provisions included in the SCORE Act. This amendment will ensure that should this bill become law, it won't turn back the clock on athletes by handing power back to the NCAA to operate above the law. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. I yield back the balance of my time.
Yes, the gentleman will state his point of order.
I insist on the point of order, Mr. Chairman. The amendment violates Rule 10, Clause 1F of the House rules because it is outside the scope of this committee's jurisdiction. Specifically, Ms. Trahan's amendment addresses the employment standing of college athletes, which is outside the scope of this committee's jurisdiction. The amendment is out of order.
Thank you. Does anybody, any other member wish to be heard on the amendment? Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The SCORE Act shuts down college athletes' ability to assert their rights or seek protections in the courts and state legislatures or through collective bargaining. And this leaves athletes with almost no path to protect themselves and strips them of the rights enjoyed by every other American. So I support Representative Trahan's amendment striking the 3 sections of the SCORE Act that deny college athletes their rights and give the NCAA and conferences a blank check to reinstate decades of exploitation. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anyone, any further discussion on the amendment? On the point of order. On the point of order. On the point of order. Yes, okay, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, we're literally at the
From the great
committee
state of
hearing,
Florida.
reviewing this bill with all these provisions in here. How could it possibly be that you take away, that you're taking away the ability to amend the bill in this committee when it's clearly within our jurisdiction? It's paradoxical.
Okay, thank you. The chair is ready to rule. Mr. Fry makes a point of order of that amendment offered.
Mr. Chairman, there's additional comments.
There are additional comments on it. On the point of order. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay, you're recognized, Ms. Castor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a fundamental question because I know that pieces of the bill are in 3 different committees, in the Energy and Commerce, in 2, not Judiciary for some reason. Okay. So in Education and Workforce and in Energy and Commerce. But there's a lot of overlap when it comes to how a lot of these provisions are going to work together. For example, I have a fundamental question about Title IX. And I can just, of course, everyone understands Title IX is the federal law that prohibits sex-based discrimination in education, requires schools to offer equitable opportunities to women in athletics. Is it your intent in this bill to ensure that Title IX remains the law of the land and not have the new NIL and compensation provisions override Title IX? I mean, that's kind of a fundamental question on whether we move forward on all sorts of things, preemption and the liability protection and.
Okay, the chair is ready to rule.
Or if you can't answer that question about the legislative intent, maybe ask the council on that.
Yeah, why don't we do that? No. Okay. Again, outside of
Mr.
the
Chairman?
committee's jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I, this is going to be in 2 committees. So the Title IX as 3, well, it's 2, I think there are going to be 2 markups. There's 3 committees, 2 markups. And Ed and Workforce is going to mark up the Title IX part of this legislation next week. I think they're scheduled. I don't know if that's been posted yet or not, but that's my understanding.
Right, there's no, as I read the bill, there's no reference to Title IX, and I understand, Chairman Guthrie, that is the jurisdiction of the Education and Workforce Committee. But this is kind of a fundamental question for how this bill is going to operate. Will Title IX remain the overriding law, or do these new compensation formulas and NIL, is it your intent to supersede Title IX?
No, it is not the intent at all to supersede. If you'll yield to Title IX, the Title IX should remain and completely want to ensure, if there's any question, that Title IX remains in full effect.
And that Title IX would take precedence over any of the formulas established in this bill, that there will still be that fundamental requirement for equity in athletics.
Obviously, there'll be an in workforce next, but yeah, that's certainly the intent of this side of the aisle, that when that comes to education workforce, Title IX is in full effect. We don't want to undermine Title IX. There's no intent to do that.
Maybe, and maybe we can agree to work on that with the other committee going forward to clarify that? Would you all, Mr. Bilirakis, would you, and Mr. Chairman Guthrie, would you?
I'll work with you. I will tell you that this is irrelevant to the point of order, though, at hand, this discussion of the bill. So, again, but I will definitely work with you and also the chairman of the Ed and Workforce Committee.
Do you want to yield?
Yeah, I'll yield to you.
So if you look at just the House settlement, one of the big concerns is that the $20 million with some number for inflation that is distributed is a concern. It would all go, if you're Alabama, it all goes to football. If you're Kentucky, it all goes to basketball. And so that traditional Olympic sports or other sports would be left out. And so this bill actually maintains, I think it's 16, that each school has to maintain 16 athletic programs. So they can't just say, all right, we're going to be a football school, we're going to do a basketball school, and forget all the others. And Title IX would still apply, that they have to be equitable as it was before, is my full understanding of it.
Will the gentleman yield? Oh, I'm sorry.
And
I think it's the lady, my friend from Florida's time, but yeah.
Yes, I have another point on that.
But you have a fair point, but we want to make sure that's addressed. I believe
And
this bill is stronger than the settlement.
Right, and
that way.
there's the pot of money to be distributed, and then there's the other outside NIL deals that student athletes would be.
Yeah, students
And
can
I
have
want to
their
make sure that Title IX is going to apply to both of those.
I guess that would be a
The
workforce
overarch
question, but
that
the
it's-
intent would be that it does. Yeah.
But I'll yield to Rep. Tran.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make sure that when we're talking about the forward-looking precedent setting of the House settlement and the $22.5 million, we have some universities who are actually using the backward-looking distribution of the House settlement that does not account for Title IX, right? It's 90% going to football and basketball. The remaining 10% is split between all other men's sports and then all women's sports. And so I think, to the Congresswoman from Florida's point, is Title IX going to be the law of the land, and is it your intention that those distributions and the revenue share will be compliant with current law?
You know, I'll leave that with Chairman Walberg, but we will work together on that if you would like to work together. I just don't know the Title IX answers that you're asking, but I know that's going to be in Ed and Workforce next week, but we will work with you to get there.
Thank you very much, because it's fundamental to moving forward a bill of this scope and impact.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Agreed. I'm willing to work with you as well, as you know. The chair is ready to rule. Mr. Fry makes a point of order that the amendment offered by Ms. Trahan is beyond the scope of the committee's jurisdiction. Rule 10 provides for the jurisdictional scope of each committee of the House that determines what legislation may be considered by each of the committees. The chair finds that the amendment goes beyond the scope of this committee's jurisdiction and therefore not in order. The point of order is sustained.